Good morning, my brothers and sisters, and welcome to episode 61 of Be With Me. And we are getting the cannonballs of the Lord's commandments today. This is Tuesday of the Great Week, and Jesus is laying out the most important commandment of the Old Testament. And then he's going to give us number 2 today. Yesterday, we found out what was number 1, and that was from Mark chapter 12, verse 15, or Mark chapter 12 and verse 30. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. And that was the most important commandment in all of the Old Testament. We went back to Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, where that was, and we found that we have this awesome, transcendent, shiny God. But then he's relational, and he chooses us, and he chooses to be relational with us, and we get to love him with all our soul and mind and strength. The most important command is that you shall love him. So then what's number 2? Well, you can hardly even wait for the answer. He follows it. So this is Mark chapter 12, verse 31. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. So let's turn back. So we did this yesterday. So this is from the book of Leviticus. Hey, do you read the book of Leviticus? Let's find it in the Old Testament. Jesus says this is the number 2 commandment in all of the Old Testament, your big fat Old Testament. This is the second commandment that I want you to be most aware of. And here it is. This is Leviticus chapter 19 and verse 18. And I'll just read verse 18. You shall not take vengeance or bear a grudge against the sons of your own people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And then there's a colon. I am the Lord. Interesting, that's not in Jesus didn't quote the whole verse. He left that part off. Probably a good Jew would know that the remainder of that verse, that I am the Lord. So let's talk about number 2. The second most important command in all of the Old Testament. We challenged ourselves yesterday and said, are there stars is there an underline? Have you sweated blood over this verse? Is this the second thing that they teach kids in Sunday school? So Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18, you shall love. Think about this, you should not be a grouch. It's not that the second most important command is not that you save money. It's not that you obey something, this or that. It's that you shall love. So we found out yesterday you get relationship with me. TaDa. And today, number 2 is you get relationship with other people. In other words, you're not alone, and we should build relationships and value them and treasure them. I was thinking about the Martian movie, The Martian, excellent book and excellent movie, where basically this astronaut, based on some circumstances, wakes up to find himself alone on Mars. And the whole rest of the movie was him to get back to relationships, to start to communicate, and then get back to relationships with other people. He uses extraordinary measures to get back into relationship. Well, we have that privilege today. So we get the Lord saying, hey, I thought this up. I gave you this treasure that you get to be in association with other people. Now, we do this wrong. We steal from people. We covet what they have. We take sexual pleasure from them that's not ours. We lie in court against them. We divorce the ones that we have problems with. We misvalue them. We misvalue them in light of God. We deal with them falsely. We abuse authority over them. We oppress them in certain ways. We defer to the great, and we prejudice against the lowly. But this passage really teaches us about what Jesus means about this. First of all, he says, in the context, you have to lower the bar as far as who is your neighbor is. Just a few verses before this, he talks about the poor. He talks about those who are traveling, the sojourners, the strangers in among you. He talks about the handicapped, the deaf and the blind. He talks about people that are of your national interest and also people that are of your non-national interest. He talks about people that you have disputes over. So humanity is a big bag of crazy wonderfulness that includes the people of God in the sense that they're in God's kingdom and they have believed, but also the people of God who have been created by God. And we're supposed to mark our relationships by love. And so how are we supposed to do that? Do it like you love yourself. So he wants us to lower the bar as far as who is our neighbor is. And remember, when they asked Jesus, well, who is my neighbor? And he tells the whole story about the Good Samaritan, that a person is supposed to be marked by compassion and generosity. And then he says, well, how should I love? What is love? And he uses the highest criteria, which is love them just like you love yourself. And I think we should have some compassion on other people because of commandment number 1. They're trying to love God. They're probably doing it poorly, just like you are. And Alexandria Philo, the line is, be kind because everyone you meet is facing a great struggle. Well, one of the struggles we face is against humanity and poverty and money and sex and all the things that we all deal with on a daily basis. But then every human being is also struggling with how are they relating to the Lord. In James chapter 2, they actually call this, the love your neighbor commandment, the royal law. And I think that what's so important here is to associate commandment number 2, love your neighbor, with commandment number 1. And if you go back to Leviticus, it does exactly that because it says, I am the Lord. So don't forget that he is the Lord, and understanding that he is the Lord gives you the horizontal ability to love your neighbor better. Okay, so let's conclude. Let's try to do this right today. Let's love God by loving our neighbor. Who is my neighbor? You know, the lowest of the low, lower the bar for that. And how should I do it? Raise the bar for that. They're in a struggle. So today, let's win the internal battle of affection and compassion and care for our neighbors that are in the struggle with us. Thank you, Lord.